This is a video where we take on Pokemon Anil, which is a Pokemon FireRed remake fan game where you get to play through the journey of Pokemon FireRed, but it is different. The game has loads of upgrades, and in this video we're going to be trying to go through all of the playable moments that are available right now. Let's get started. So we start off by picking our character and skin color, which then afterwards we get to decide on our name as well as on what our rival is going to be called. And of course, because I like to meme, I call him Not Chad, because why not? So one of the awesome things about this game is that you have multiple different modes you can play. You can play the classic mode, which is pretty straightforward. It's not that difficult or really that strange. It's basically just the game with the first two generations of Pokemon. Then you have the complete mode, which is the game, but it has pretty much all of the generations of Pokemon. And then there's the random mode. And the random mode basically just randomizes the whole game. So you have three different game modes you can play with. Either 2 gens, all the gens, aka all the way up until 7 and 8, I think, and or if you want randomized modes. So either of these is available in the game. I decided to go straight up for the, well, I guess complete mode, and then you get to also choose if you want to play a normal or a Nuzlocke. And we go for a Nuzlocke run here. Of course, if we end up losing this Nuzlocke run, we'll just keep playing until we finish the game, so just keep that in mind. Nonetheless, we choose the Nuzlocke mode, and then you get also choose the difficulty. And here you can choose different difficulties that will make the game more hard or easy. Now, at this point, we're now in our home, and we can talk to our mother, who can just give us different things to do. Now, I will point out, one of the actually coolest things about this game is the Gen 5 art style. As you may notice, the game doesn't look like regular FireRed. It actually looks like a Generation 5 game, similar to Black and White. But that's not all. The game also has a following system, so your Pokemon can follow you, as you will notice very soon. Either way, we head to Professor Oak's lab, and here, of course, we run into Not Chad, aka Gary, aka Blue, and we get to then also go ahead and choose our starter Pokemon. And since this is FireRed, of course, the starter is going to be the Kanto ones, and I decided to go for Bulbasaur. And the reason for Bulbasaur is because usually Bulbasaur is technically the starter Pokemon that's kind of the strongest, as you may notice, if you play early on. And here I decided to call it Big Nut, because why not? It's a nice name, it sounds good, and it is a big nut, so let's go. And then we have to battle, of course, Not Chad, aka Gary, aka Blue, and his Charmander with Big Nut, and we go in right away. Now, one of the things you may notice very quickly on, this is a Spanish game. Yes, it is a bit complicated because of that to understand, so I would recommend, if you're going to be playing the game, to just translate everything. Pretty much here, I know that one of these moves is going to be Tackle, and the other one's going to be either Growl or something, so I don't struggle too much, and yeah, we finished the battle with, Blue, and then it's time to head out and go get the parcel for Oak. Also, here you get to now see what it looks like when you're following Pokemon, which I think looks great, and I just love when there is following Pokemon in Pokemon games, and when they don't include that, it does kind of annoy me sometimes. But nonetheless, we're now making our way up to Viridian to get ourselves the, well, I guess, parcel for Oak. Now, instead of finding the parcel, we actually find Leaf, or Green, whatever you want to call her, one of the characters from the manga who unfortunately never really shows up much in the actual games, besides the playable version you can get, of course, I think in FireRed and Leaf Green. Nonetheless, we interact with Leaf, and then it's time to head back and get ourselves the Pokedex from Professor Oak. After our conversation with Professor Oak, it's now time to head out into the world of Pokemon and go get ourselves our first gym badge. So, before doing anything else, we of course got to get ourselves more Pokemon into our team. So I'm looking around for a Nidoran, and since this is a Nuzlocke mode initially, I decide that, okay, well, I have to, of course, get only the first encounter in every route, and the first encounter I initially found I actually ended up killing, so I could only get one over here. And this is the route right next to when you go to the Elite Four. And we got ourselves a Nidoran, which we nickname to Dwayne. We then quickly head to the Pokemon Center to get ourselves healed up and buy a few items before heading into the Viridian Forest. Now, the Viridian Forest has actually been changed, and one of the big aspects of this game that you will, well, really quickly notice is that they've actually changed a lot of the maps. Now, the maps have just been made larger, more grand, and at least this way, when you are exploring, it will feel a little bit different and a little bit more new. And now that we reach Viridian, we have to take on Leaf in a battle, and that's exactly what happens. We take on our rival here, who starts off with a Mankey, and it goes for focus energy seemingly, and we don't really have a lot of options here. We go for Leech Seed so that we can be able to get some HP back every time we attack this thing, and then we just more or less just tackle it over and over again until Mankey dies. However, we do get the potion in there on the Mankey, which heals it up and leaves us in a precarious situation. Now, we are playing in a mode here, which makes it so that over-leveling is kind of difficult. We aren't really able to over-level much over the other Pokemon. This is something that you'll notice in this game can become a bit of a problematic issue. Next up, though, is Squirtle. Of course, we do have the advantage here, and I think we had a Wine Whip there. I'm not really sure exactly if that is the move that we were using. Again, I didn't translate every single move. I just kind of guessed my way through the moves and assumed what some could and couldn't do. Nonetheless, at this point, we now made it into the Viridian Forest. Inside the Viridian Forest, we look around and actually find ourselves a brand new partner to add to our team, as well as an antidote. By the way, what's the partner Pokemon? Well, it's this one. It is KATY, ladies and gents. Of course, I want to have a Butterfree. I want to feel kind of similar to Ash Ketchum in some way here, so I decided to go for this one and actually capture. We got 6 Pokeballs, so it's not going to be that hard, and of course, we do end up capturing this little fellow and adding him to our team. And we call him Misty because I was thinking about Misty when I actually nicknamed him, and I kind of messed up and forgot the T and whatnot. So either way, we got Misty in our team, and the reason as to why I nicknamed it that is, if you guys remember from the first season of the Pokemon anime, Misty is really scared of KATY, but only once it turns into a Butterfree, she actually seems to be a bit more respectful of it. Nonetheless, now let's move on. So we are making it through Viridian and running into loads of bug types as well as different trainers, and of course we can only capture the first Pokemon we encounter, so that's why we had to get ourselves a KATY as well, which we did of course. But nonetheless, there's loads of trainers in here. We have to defeat all of them as our way to get to Pewter City, and of course I will recommend to actually do defeat them, because this game's Nuzlocke mode, it is ridiculously difficult. I'm not gonna lie. If you're gonna be Nuzlocking it, of course, then you definitely should, over-level yourself to a little bit, or at least plan out your battles strategically and properly, or else you're going to lose, which is more or less what happens to me. Either way, after a few battles, we are now making our way into Pewter City, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. I then explore a little bit of Pewter City itself and go and heal ourselves up, and then we head to the Pewter City Museum, which I, for some reason, decide to visit, and it turns out we actually need to visit it because that's where the story takes place. So as we are here, we run into Brock, and then all of a sudden, 2 Team Rocket members burge in, I guess trying to steal some stuff, steal some possible fossils that can be found inside of here. But of course, with the help of Brock, we take these people on, take on these Team Rocket grunts, and of course, we try to defeat them. Now, first up is a Rattata, which is not going to be the biggest deal in the world. Again, we are going to more or less just set up, I think, Leech Seed in this case. Then we just keep hitting it with what looks to be Wine Whip over and over again until eventually we get rid of the Rattata, and then they also have an Ekans. So it's just a classic Team Rocket usual duo combo of Pokemon. Next up, though, the Ekans is doing quite a bit of damage on us. We do have a bigger team now, as you guys may have noticed. We had 3 Pokemon in total, so we do have a larger team, and Big Nut is taking quite a lot of damage, so we keep trying our best and seeing if we can defeat him. We go for a potion to heal up Big Nut because we don't want to lose him just yet. I mean, again, we are doing a Nuzlocke in the beginning here. Of course, I do also want to complete the game in general, but nonetheless, we are then taking on the Ekans. We keep spamming over and over again the Wine Whip as well as the, I think, Tackle, which after a few amount of hits, we actually managed to do. So yeah, ladies and gents, we defeat the Team Rocket Grunt, and guess what? We get ourselves a Metapod because Misty decides to evolve. And now that we have ourselves our team and everything done, we can now go and take on Brock. However, we do also have an encounter on the top of the map right here, as you guys can see, and we get to find ourselves a matchup. And we do capture this one, and we nickname it John Cena. Now we can take on the gym itself. Now remember, initially when I started this run, I wanted to do it as a Nuzlocke. However, I end up actually losing the Nuzlocke aspect in this, and after this point forward, I just play the game for fun, trying to finish it for you guys to see what it looks like so far in development. So let's continue with that, shall we? In the process of all of this, our Bulbasaur actually evolves while we are leveling, so we got ourselves an Ivysaur. And so now it's time to take on Brock himself in his gym. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what we do. He kicks off with a Dweeble, and we of course are with Big Nut first. So there's a lot of spamming of trying to hit these Razor Leafs and whatnot and Wine Whips, which we eventually do end up doing. Then we switch over into Dwayne, who is going to be doing a little bit of damage with the double kick on this Bonsley. We keep doing this, but the heals come in, and eventually we do get the Bonsley as well, leaving Onyx as the next Pokemon, and we switch back into Big Nut. We go and actually set up our Leech Seed first, which is kind of useful. Then we go and switch into Dwayne, hoping that the damage is going to be enough from our other Pokemon, but we switch quickly into Big Nut as well, and hit him with a Wine Whip as well. And ladies and gentlemen, guess what? We got ourselves our first gym badge already. So there you go, ladies and gents. Let's move on to the next area, which is going to be Mount Moon. Now, as we're heading this way, we go into Route 3. Now, one of the interesting things here is, as you may notice, as previously mentioned, is that the map has been changed. So aspects of it will literally look different than what you're used to from original Fire Red and Leaf Green. And that's exactly what's happening right here. Either way, we keep looking around a bit, and also you can also do this if you press A or D on your actual keyboard when you're playing this. If you have a QWERTY keyboard, you'll actually be able to switch which Pokemon is following you without going into your inventory, which is pretty awesome. On the way to Mount Moon, of course, we have to go through Route 3, which is just flooded with these lasses everywhere, and this one's got a fletchling in particular. So yes, you will notice there are Gen 6 Pokemon, Gen 7, and even Generation 8 Pokemon, as well as, like, you know, Galarian forms and stuff like that available in this game. So you'll find all those as you are playing through it. And after loads of battling, finally Dwayne decides to actually evolve, and we got ourselves a Nidorina, so there you go. And so we finally make it to Mount Moon itself, and this is a big-ass mountain, and first thing you'll notice is, again, they changed the actual look of it. Like, the actual mountain itself has changed a lot in its design and the way it looks and everything. And yeah, we just run into a Geodude, which I thought for a second maybe we should capture this one, but decided not to, and we continue on through the cave. We then run into a lass who kicks off with a Clefairy. Of course, it is Mount Moon, the home of Clefairy, so it makes sense that the person would have this. Of course, this Clefairy ends up being quite a handful. Now, as you may notice, the levels are always extremely close, because the game, more or less, as far as I could tell, scales to you. So it scales to your level to be around the same range that you are, which means a lot of the battles will be just really difficult, okay? They'll be extremely difficult. Also, I love the random roaming Pokemon in the sky and whatnot, as you can see somewhere around the map. Also, when you're inside of the cave, for some reason, you will notice that instead of running into stuff and instead of having to use a repel, there are actually patches. There are these patches that are moving, which are wild Pokemon. So this way, you don't actually have to use repels, and you're not required to do it. Also, there are no HMs in this game. Instead of HMs, you just receive an item that can just break down rock smashes and break down also, like, trees for cuts. So you're pretty much set. Also, we run into this Paris, which we don't really need, so we don't really capture it. We then run into a big, beautiful caveman, and he decides to battle us with a Roggenrola, of course, because we are a big nut. This is not a problem. So Roggenrola is gone. I think he has one more Pokemon in this case, which he kicks off right into, and that's going to be his Fanfy. We hit it really hard there, but unfortunately it's not enough, but the second hit does take it out, which also leads us into the next thing, which is our boy Misty, which is really weird because Misty, I mean, I guess it works as a name, you know, equal opportunities for these Pokemon. And guess what? We got ourselves a Butterfree, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this beauty. And then we finally got out of the cave. Now, one of the things you'll notice here, actually, interestingly enough, is that in this game, there is no Team Rocket in Mount Moon, as far as I could tell. I didn't actually run into them until I ran into Leaf instead. And Leaf kicks off again with the Mankey as before, and we don't really have too many issues with that. He does do the switcheroo, though, into a Hoot Hoot, which I didn't expect, but we go for Acido, which is pretty much acid. We lose Big Nut, which is a little bit problematic, to say the least. Dwayne comes in next, though, and we hit him with the double kick right onto Hoot Hoot. However, the heal comes in from Leaf, which is really annoying. I'll be honest, like, these guys spam heal. They spam super potions and even hyper potions later on, just non-stop. It is ridiculous how many they have. But either way, next up is War Turtle. We hit him with a double kick. It doesn't really do a lot, so I'm kind of a bit concerned. So I decide, okay, you know what? We're gonna go for Colmilo Vile, or Ven, I guess, which is some sort of poison move. I'm not really sure which one it is, to be frankly honest. You guys can tell me in the comment section down below. I never translated it. But nonetheless, we get rid of the War Turtle, and then we switch into John Cena. Now, John Cena is up against the Mankey, so it's, you know, a lot of fighting versus fighting right here. We go for Karate Chop, which does a lot of damage. We survive hit from the Mankey, and then we are done with that, and we've defeated Leaf for, I think, the second time already. And I just like that they included Leaf instead and changed the story around to be a little bit more different than what we are used to. We also find the area where the Clefairies do their moon dance, so yeah, they're just chilling up here, doing their thing. I think you can also find a moonstone here, but I just don't remember actually finding it myself. Nonetheless, once you've dealt with that, we continue. We make it into a different section of the mountain where it turns out that, yes, we do have to still battle Team Rocket, which is exactly what we end up having to do. First up is this guy with a Sandshrew. We have, of course, Misty on us, and our HP is low on everything else, so we don't really have the strongest team ready for this experience, but nonetheless, we shouldn't struggle too much. Carvana comes up next. We go for Tornado, which is just, I think, Twister or something like along those lines, which does do quite a bit of damage, and we get rid of another Pokemon. Croagunk is next, though. I go for a potion just in case. However, I realize I used the potion on the wrong Pokemon, which was really frustrating, and we end up losing our boy Misty just at the edge right there, like literally just slightly left. But nonetheless, we deal with some of these Team Rocket grunts, and then we make our way into Cerulean. But before we can take on Cerulean and the gym there, we have to, of course, take on this guy, Miguel, who is just a weird little scientist dude, and he just wants to get his hands on some of these fossils. So he's got a Gulpin to start things off. We go right in with our Dwayne. Dwayne does a lot of damage. We have, of course, a few different moves. We go in with our Poison move right there, which I think is something similar to Toxic. I mean, I don't think it's specifically Toxic. I think it's specifically Sludge, actually, but I could be wrong. We also have the opportunity to get a brand new move, which I think is Fury, Cutter, but I decide not, or Fury Swipes, I guess, but we decide not to go for that because it doesn't seem worth it. Then there is a Slowpoke, which we spam the hell out of. We got Dwayne, of course, we heal him up to make sure we can actually win this without having to lose against a bloody Slowpoke, which we end up actually doing. We get it with the Sludge, and then he has a Chinchou, which, yeah, this wasn't really planned here, but we do get it with a few hits, and guess what? A few Sludges here and there, and it is gone, and we actually get ourselves our, I guess you would say, second dub so far in the cave, but nonetheless, we defeated this guy, and now we can get to Cerulean proper. Psych! No, actually, we can't get to Cerulean just yet. We have to deal with this admin from Team Rocket called Atlas. So Atlas is going to be taking us on. You can even see my frustration, but I didn't realize my team was actually healed up. So Marini is up first. We are not really having a great time against this thing. I'm not going to lie. Our team is not really strong enough, and Marini is just... I mean, this thing is just disgusting, to be frankly honest. So we go for a Super Potion, trying to make sure the Big Nut survives this battle because it is a very close one. I'm kind of wondering about what moves to even use. I don't really know what my moves are 100%, so I'm a little confused about what would make the most amount of sense. I would recommend if you're playing this game, definitely just get the Bulbapedia article with or actually just get yourself the Pokemon database website, which will tell you all the names in different languages. I usually think Bulbapedia is the best option for this, but that's pretty much how I played this when I wanted to figure out a move when I really could not understand which one it was. So I highly recommend to do that if you want to make sure you get through this without too many issues. So at this point, we've lost Big Nut, and we only have 3 Pokemon left, but unfortunately for the enemy, we're not super useless just yet. Of course, John Cena isn't really the strongest Pokemon in the world, so he ends up dying, plus the poisoning on him is not the best. I thought at this point maybe we had Toxic Spikes under us, which wasn't the case. We just got poisoned in general. We go for a Double Kick, which doesn't do pretty much anything. So we go for the Sludge, which does a little bit more damage, still not enough. I think here at this point we go for Slash as far as I'm aware. Again, I could be totally off base here on what the move is. We got a few potions, so it makes sense that, you know, we should definitely heal Dwayne up a tiny bit, which is exactly what we do. At this point, we are running out of potions. We're running out of patience as well, because this Golbat does not want to die, and I don't really know what to do. I just keep spamming. I just non-stop keep spamming potions, hoping that I'll be strong enough just to get through this thing. And we keep getting hit by Sludge, what it seems to be like from this Golbat, and I'm hoping that if I heal up at this point, he won't heal himself as well, and I can actually take out this Golbat, which pretty much is what ends up happening. We get rid of the Golbat, which means we are now much closer to actually getting out of this bloody cave. And man, Mount Moon is horrible to deal with. It is a long cave. It's got a lot of people in it, and unfortunately for me, I had to battle every single one of them pretty much in this run. So Houndour is up next. Unfortunately, we don't really have any Water-type Pokemon, and our only other option that we literally have, let's just say it's not really the best. But however, we do get the Double Kick off, which destroys Houndour and leaves it in the dust, and that means we've defeated the Team Rocket admin, Atlas, and now we can get to Cerulean finally, which is exactly what we do. We exit the cave, and ladies and gentlemen, we're on Route 4, and now we can go and get ourselves all the way to Cerulean City to take on the gym. As we approach Cerulean City and enter the gym, we realize that, well, we have to actually go and find Misty first before we can take on her gym. And to do this, we need to go across the Nugget Bridge, as it is more or less called. And to get past it, first of all, we need to battle our rival. So yes, it's time to take on Not Chad. So before we can take Not Chad on, I decided to go and catch myself a Wooper, which we literally did in this case. So we got ourselves a Wooper, which we nicknamed Goofy. Now, before we do anything, of course, we have to get past this lad himself. He kicks off with a Pidgeotto, which we go right in with Dwayne. We do quite a bit of damage with a bunch of double kicks, but unfortunately, they are not super effective, so it takes a while to get through this lad and his team. And then we switch over into John Cena, our matchup, who goes up against the Kadabra, which I didn't realize was a Kadabra I was going to be battling, but nonetheless, we do quite a lot of damage, and then we end up losing John Cena, which was a little bit scary, I'm not going to lie. We do have Kadabra on the leash here, though, because we can hit it with the Confusion, which will get rid of it with, of course, Misty. Then I decide to stay in with Misty against Charmeleon, which we get one tap on this Charmeleon from, and then I switch into Goofy, because Goofy, of course, does have that water typing, which is very handy and useful. However, I didn't know if this was going to be enough to actually defeat this Charmeleon. So, when we're left at 1 HP on Goofy, we get him with that hit. I don't really know what the move was. I think it was like Sludge Wave or something along those lines. Something like that. I could be a bit wrong about that. Nonetheless, though, Raticate comes out next. Of course, a Raticate that you do end up pretty much killing in this game if you think about it. Nonetheless, we are now super potioning our boy Dwayne up a bit just so we can get through this, because this is pretty much his only Pokemon left, I think, at this point. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we take out our boy, Not Chad, hand, and that means we can now cross the Nugget Bridge and go and find Misty. But on the Nugget Bridge itself, of course, we're going to be running into a lot of problems, including a bunch of lasses and lads that work for Team Rocket, more or less. As far as I'm aware, that's what they were supposed to be doing in this case. But nonetheless, we're taking on loads of them. This first one here has got himself a Nidoran, which we take out pretty easily with Big Nut. Of course, Big Nut, just very strong, very powerful, very interesting Pokemon nonetheless. So, ladies and gents, we have now made it to the final person on the Nugget Bridge, which is going to be the Team Rocket Grunt, Mania, I guess, in this case. So, Sandile is the first thing that Mania is going to be using in this case. Up against us, we get rid of it very quickly with John Cena, of course, with that beautiful fighting typing. Then we have Murkrow, which pretty much demolishes us. So, we have to go into Goofy, who has a few different moves we can use. In this case, I still cannot remember what this move is, if it was Sludge Wave or whatever else it could have been. But nonetheless, it was a move that didn't really do much for us because this thing, well, it doesn't really get affected by ground type moves in this case, as far as I'm aware. Nonetheless, though, Dwayne comes in next. We go for the double kick, which is very powerful and gets rid of the Murkrow, leaving now us with a W, and now we can go and find Misty. And so, after talking to Bill and helping him with his weird situation and his random teleportation situation, we actually decide to go and talk to Misty now, and we can head back and take on her gym, finally. We also capture an Abra, which we nicknamed Kadabra for whatever reason. Nonetheless, we also have an Abra on our team now, which is great, because having a Psychic type could be coming useful later on down the line. And so, inside of Misty's gym now, we take on one of her trainers. In this case, it is a camper called Diana. Now, Diana has a Octillery, and we've got ourselves a Big Nut coming out real good, real strong, with the, I guess, Wine Whip in this case, which doesn't do a lot of damage. Again, it seems like, I don't know, Big Nut's not really doing super much for us initially and early on. Also, then we fail our other move. I didn't really know what move that was that I was using. I just know that it was supposed to be an effective move that was going to be like a move that's actually supposed to do damage. So it wasn't like Poison Powder or anything like that. But nonetheless, I didn't really know what to do at this point. So I switch over into Misty instead. Go for our little, I think, I could be wrong here. I think it's Air Cutter or something like that. Also could be Air Slash. I could be wrong. But it is a actual flying type move nonetheless. And Octillery is now gone thanks to that. Also, we get ourselves some nice little, you know, extra experience points on all our Pokemon because we do have EXP share on, and this also leads to Abra finally evolving, and we get ourselves a Kadabra, or not finally, well, technically when I was playing it took a while, but nonetheless, we now also have a Kadabra in our team, which is great, because now it's time to take on Misty. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the battle against Misty, and of course, she has a pretty solid team, I'm not gonna lie. She's got 3 Pokemon to kick things off with. She's got the Goldeen. Now, we go in with Big Nut, which is more over-leveled in this case, and we go and get ourselves the Wine Whip, which does quite a lot of damage, and one-hit KOs the Goldeen almost, except it just survives barely, which is really annoying. So we have to keep hitting the, you know, Wine Whips until we get rid of it. At this point now, there are 2 Pokemon left in Misty's team, and I am kind of a little bit concerned if we're going to be able to do this, because I'd already tried and it didn't really work the first time around. So guess what? We switch the moves here. We give ourselves, I think, Twister there or something along those lines as a switch in, and we also get, I think, Poison Powder as an option as well on our Butterfree Missy. Next up is Dreadnought. Now, I was really worried that this thing was going to have like a Dynamax or something. Luckily, that wasn't the case. And unfortunately, there is no Dynamaxing or Megas, I think, in this game, as far as I could tell from playing it. We end up losing Big Nut, and I'm a little bit concerned about what I should do next. So I make the decision, okay, we're going to switch over into Missy, because Missy is one of our stronger Pokemon, and this thing is pretty low HP. So we go for Sleep Powder, which does put it to sleep, and then we hit it with a few Air Slashes, I think, which unfortunately wasn't enough on the first try, so we lose a lot of HP on Missy. However, second time around, it is gone. So now we're left with only 1 Pokemon on the enemy team, which we're not going to be struggling too much with, I hope. We have, I mean, still 5 Pokemon left at this point, with only 1 being Big Nut being gone. So we hit him with a Air Slash, which does quite a bit of damage, except the heal comes in there, and we go for a Super Potion because, of course, Missy is seemingly our strongest Pokemon against Starmie, and we get hit with the Hydro Pulse, or Water Pulse, rather, I think. And then we switch over into Kadabra. We hit him with the Psywave, I think, and we survive on 1 HP, and we still don't get the Starmie. I mean, look at the HP of this thing. It still isn't dead. So Dwayne has to come in and more or less kind of make up for the situation. So we go in, we hit him with the Mordisco. Not really sure what that move is. I think it's Pursuit or something like that. I could be wrong. But we go in, and ladies and gentlemen, we've defeated Misty and gotten ourselves another badge. That means we're now 2 badges in and 2 badges to go, because this game only goes up to 4 gyms, so keep that in mind. Nonetheless, there we go. We have the Cascade badge, and we can move on to Vermilion. After this, we head then down to Route 5 and make our way towards Vermilion City. Of course, that's where we have to go to get our next gym badge, as well as to go to the SS and interact with, of course, the usual battle against Blue, as far as I know. So nonetheless, we make it through Route 5 and get to Vermilion City. Once we are in Vermilion, it is now time to heal ourselves up, of course, ladies and gentlemen, and then it's going to go and take on the gym. But first and foremost, we gotta go to the SSN. We then make our way down to the SSN, and as you may notice, my camera looks a bit different. It's because I recorded this section of the game much later from the previous sections. This is actually when I moved house. I now basically live in a new place, which is way better. No more neighbors that are literally crazy people, but nonetheless, we were playing with people over on Twitch and just chilling, and then we run into, of course, Not Chad and, of course, Leaf as well. They're inside of the giant, well, SSN boat, whatever you want to call it, cruiser, ferry, whatever. Doesn't matter. My point is, we are inside of it, and now we gotta go and deal with everything in here and get ourselves cut, because we'll be needing cut, I think, to get to the gym. Now, normally that's what you do need. However, here you just need to progress in the story to actually be able to take on the gym. So we gotta go and find Lieutenant Surge, which is exactly what we start doing. However, as we're about to do that, a Team Rocket grunt shows up, and it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that Team Rocket are doing some nefarious stuff on this boat, and we gotta deal with them. We gotta put them in their place, and that's exactly what we're about to do. So yeah, let's do that right now. So we make our way around the boat, making sure we do all the little side battles we possibly can to make sure we get as much experience as possible before heading into the Team Rocket clutches, which of course will be a problem once we do get to them. So at this point, we're just kind of making our way around, getting as many battles done as possible. This person has a hat dream, so there you go, proof of Gen 8 Pokemon in the game as well. If you didn't already realize, there was also a Galarian Zigzagoon previously, but yeah, I'm also at this point showing off pretty much my setup as well as my new room, which I'm recording this inside of right now. So nonetheless, we make our way around and kind of get a few new moves for our Pokemon, defeated a few trainers, get a decent amount of experience, I would say. But nonetheless, now it's time to go and take on Team Rocket. So Team Rocket have lined up here and are stopping us from making progress, so we gotta go and take on the grunts first and foremost. We've got Ixta here, who has an Ekans to start things off. We of course got our boy Big Nut in here, doing the God's work, more or less, pretty much destroying Ekans after a while, though we do get paralyzed, which is a little bit annoying, I'm gonna be honest and frankly fair with you guys. Nonetheless, we do kind of keep spamming the Wide Whip and whatnot on this thing until we eventually end up actually defeating it, and it is gone. Big Nut now has to take on another Pokemon, but I'm kind of considering, should I switch out? I don't. So Thievul is up next. This thing, unfortunately for me, does end up, I think, destroying me more or less. I'm down to 7 HP at this point, and I think we end up dying, so I decided to switch over into, of course, John Cena, aka Machop. So we switch over to him. We go for a Karate Chop, which I think one-hit KOs this Thievul, and it is gone, ladies and gentlemen, which means now we can make progress and take on the admins. So we head inside of this room where we find one of the admins who's talking to some scientists. I'm not really sure exactly what this is going on right here. If you guys want to translate this in the comment section down below, that'd be pretty awesome. But nonetheless, we got a battle against Atenea, so let's do that. And yeah, that's exactly what we end up doing. We take on this, I guess, admin, not really grunt, commander, whatever you want to call her. Nonetheless, we're taking on Atenea, who kicks off with a Murkrow. Now, Murkrow is a little bit annoying. It actually does a lot of damage to us, so we go in for the Leech Seed, because that way we can kind of suck some, HP back into Big Nut, which is exactly what we do. And then, of course, we go for the heal here with a Super Potion. However, the switch comes into Arbok, which is really frustrating, because Arbok pretty much destroys Big Nut, which is kind of annoying. We also get some bits on Twitch at this point. Also, you guys could watch me on Twitch. I actually play these games on Twitch if you want to see that in live. Either way, we then go into John Cena. We try to go for a few different moves here, but it just doesn't really work. We do end up hitting it, but again, not a lot that can be done against Arbok. I was a little bit torn about what Pokemon I should really use in this case, because I didn't really know. I wasn't really paying attention. I was kind of paying more attention to Twitch chat, but nonetheless, we end up losing our boy John Cena here, so we switch over into Dwayne, and Dwayne also loses, but with Goofy, we do get rid of this thing. So after that point, we also have a few more Pokemon still to battle against. One of these is Whirlipede, which we destroy with Misty, which all those, like, I guess, flying type moves, or the one flying type move we actually has, which I think is either, again, Air Slash, something like that. I can't remember. Nonetheless, we get rid of that, and now there is Murkrow left, and we just spam the same stuff again. However, Misty dies, which gets me a little bit frustrated and scared, because I'm like, oh no, I don't want to have to rebattle this person again. So we go into Goofy, we do a few switcheroos, and yeah, after a few heals here and there, we get the final hit, and we've defeated the admin, which means we are now done with Team Rocket here. here, and it also means that we can now go and talk to the captain, who is going to be rewarding us. But guess what? Not just that. There's going to be another person showing up, which is specifically going to be none else than Lieutenant Surge. So he shows up, and yeah, he wants to battle us. He's happy we got rid of Team Rocket, as far as I can tell. Now we can go take on his gym, which is exactly what we do. And inside of the gym, we end up struggling with the puzzle for the longest time, trying to figure out how to get past it. It was literally pure hell. We tried to get through it, but eventually, after a lot of tries, and after watching a guide, we kind of figured it out. After that, it's time to take on the gym itself, and time to take on Lieutenant Surge, who has a pretty strong team, to say the least. So, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what is he going to start off with? Well, it's an electrode. So we go right in, we go and set up, well, we try to poison it more or less, actually, which does end up working in our favor. We get the poison off, which is great, and then we just have to keep spamming Sludge, which is the kind of most effective move we have at the moment on this guy. Now, I'm going to be honest, this was very worrisome. I tried to also set up like Leech Seed to make sure that we also get some HP back every time, you know, we pop off an attack, which ends up actually working. We're actually, though, however, leaving Big Nut just very, very weak at this point. I mean, you guys can see he's paralyzed, 11 HP. We don't really know what to do. It is very risky, so we either can, you know, switch out and then make sure we heal him up, or we can just keep going and, you know, try our best and see what happens, because Big Nut is a useful Pokemon in this battle. Nonetheless, Big Nut is still in there until we decide to switch over to John Cena, and he goes up against the Galvantula and the Raichu. Now, the Galvantula is really annoying because they can pretty much just Volt Switch all the time, which is really annoying. It's non-stop frustrating me because it pretty much demolishes our team. So Raichu is up next. We hit Raichu with a few different moves. We get the poison off here, which is perfect as we're about to destroy this Raichu and get rid of it. So I was so happy because finally Raichu was gone, which was one of the more difficult Pokemon to deal with. Then we get Double-Edged, what it seems to be like, which is an interesting move that's not really going to benefit us much, but I still decided to go for it. We also get Viento Afin, which I decided to add to my moveset because it just seemed like a strong move based on what I could see from the stats. And again, I still did not know what move that was, but nonetheless, we now have an interesting set of Pokemon left to take on, which is more or less just Galvantula. And of course, the Magneton. However, Galvantula is in first as the Volt Switch. We are now stuck here, not really being sure what to do because Misty is low HP and ends up dying. So we have 3 Pokemon left. We go into Kadabra. We spam a few moves. It is not enough to get rid of Magneton. And at this point, it's a 2v2, right? They have 2 Pokemon, we have 2 Pokemon. We go for the Double Edge. It doesn't do anything. We end up losing our Pokemon, which means Dwayne is the only thing left. We get the Double Kick off. It does do its job. Now Galvantula is left. Luckily, we end up actually being able to spam multiple Double Kicks here. And because they don't have any heals left, we end up winning this. And yes, you can see my reaction again. Very happy because it took a while to win this battle. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a 3rd badge. Now it's time to get the last badge for this beta. And so we make our way to Route 9, and here we actually end up battling a Hiker. Now, the battle against this Hiker is actually really useful. I mean, he has a Timber and stuff like that. Nonetheless, we get our Kadabra destroyed, but Big Nut is up next, and Big Nut is actually going to be able to finally evolve now thanks to this battle. We do a few hits against the Geodude. We pretty much get rid of it very quickly. We level up to level 32 on Big Nut, and now I decide to stay in because next up is Girder. We're very low, so I go Super Potion, and the reason I do this is because I pretty much expect us to get the evolution soon, and I don't want to kind of interrupt it by, you know, having Big Nut faint or something like that. But nonetheless, we get ourselves the Venusaur, and then we keep going, and we run into one of the most peculiar people, specifically RuffledRowlit. Now, I ain't got a clue what RuffledRowlit is doing here, but she's just chilling and vibing with that Lapras, so we just let her do that, and we then head on down to get to the next cave. And before we can enter the cave, we of course run into Leaf, or Green, again, and this time around, we got ourselves another battle to go, ladies and gentlemen, so that's exactly what we do. And of course, this is Leaf, so Leaf starts off with the Primeape, which, yeah, I mean, it's a Primeape now instead of the Mankey, so we go in, and we do quite a lot of damage against this thing. I mean, there's non-stop heals coming in as well from these guys. I mean, it is a bit frustrating to say the least, but nonetheless, Primeape is gone very quickly, and next up is going to be Noctowl, which also used to be a Hoot, so we don't struggle too much against this one either. We go for our Sludge, which unfortunately doesn't work out. We get killed, so we go into John Cena instead, and John Cena, ladies and gentlemen, is a champ, all right? It's a big old champ, you know, it's just a classic old champion. Of course, Goofy is up next against the Noctowl, because John Cena doesn't really handle it, and he ends up dying as well, leaving Kadabra to take on Noctowl and try to get rid of it. But we end up not doing a lot of damage with it, unfortunately, which is a little bit frustrating to say the least. We go for a Psy Wave, I think, or something like that, or Psy Shock. It ends up doing enough damage to get rid of the Noctowl, and now Eevee is coming out instead. And Eevee is a bit more worrisome, if I'm going to be frankly honest, because I don't really know what's on this thing. But of course, we do have a few different moves, and I mean, I do get hit there with, I think it was a Dark type move or something like that hit me. I could be wrong though, I'm not really sure, but something hit me though, and it did a lot of damage. Not a dog type move, it just was a move though, more disco, whatever. Nonetheless, War Turtle is next. We go for one of our psychic moves, which we have on Kadabra. It does quite a bit of damage. About half of the HP on War Turtle is gone. We still have 2 Pokemon, though, and I go into Misty, because Misty has a few moves that I think will be a bit stronger in this case. So that's exactly what we go in for. And guess what? It ends up working, and War Turtle is gone, and that means we are now done with Leaf, and we can head inside the cave. But first, we actually get a little visit from RuffledRowlit again, who talks to us, which is just a bit random, but it's part of the story. And again, if you want to translate that part while you're playing it yourself, you can. Nonetheless, we're inside a cave now, which we make it through in a pretty fast ordeal. It doesn't take too long, and then we get to Lavender Town. And here we head inside of the Pokemon Tower, which we will actually inside of end up finding Blue as per usual, just like in Fire Red and Leaf Green proper. So we end up going inside, we battle him, and of course his team is pretty solid once again, and really difficult to defeat if I'm going to be frankly honest. But nonetheless, we have to do it. So Pidgeotto is the first thing we take out. We use Big Nut for that job. Then Gyarados comes in. We go for what I think is Petal Dance, but we get stuck in it, and we end up taking rid of the Gyarados, but he still has a big team of other Pokemon, such as Kadabra in this case, who destroys John Cena, who I only really switched into to kind of waste. Then we also lose Big Nut, which is a big problem, and Kadabra is coming up next. He doesn't do anything against the enemy Kadabra either. We're now inside and using Misty, and Misty does quite a lot of damage, which is lucky for us, because without Misty, we would have been totally destroyed here. And Misty ends up dying as well, though. We got Goofy left, which luckily does have a Water Pulse, I think, in this case, which is able to get rid of his Charmeleon, which is perfect, which gives us the W. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we can head over and get the final badge. Do a few things before we can actually take on that final badge. We have to get all the way there, which takes a bit of time, but eventually, once we do get there, it's time to take on the final gym leader, which of course is going to be Erika. Now, Erika has a Jumpluff as her actual first Pokemon, and as such, we kick off with none else than our boy Dwayne. Now, Dwayne goes in, and we actually end up more or less doing Toxic Spikes, or setting up Toxic Spikes, which ends up being really beneficial for us, as we then hit this Jumpluff. We hit it with a few different moves here. We're trying to poison it more or less, but it's not really working into our favor. And the reason I go for Toxic Spike is because I know there is one more Pokemon in her team, which is going to be fairly annoying, and poisoning it early on and getting a guaranteed poison just feels like a worthwhile bonus. So Jumpluff is gone at this point. Dwayne gets a level up, and also Dwayne at this point has done its job, so we go into Big Nut instead against the Exeggutor, who also gets poisoned, by the way, and perfectly lines up with, I guess our Toxic or our Sludge from Big Nut, which also, a second time around, is enough to get rid of it. So we have our full team still left against Vileplume. Now, Vileplume is going to be complicated, because Vileplume, as you may notice, can pretty much stop any of the things we have. So we go over to Misty, we get a few hits through, we actually end up hitting it with a few different moves, and it's gone, ladies and gentlemen. Now there is one more Pokemon left in the enemy team, and it's going to be a Lilligant. And I did not expect a Lilligant. I didn't know if, there was going to be one there, because up until this point, every battle I'd done against Erika, I'd pretty much lost before I even got to Lilligant. So I was a bit concerned, but our team was pretty solid still. We had a lot of Pokemon still left. The Giga Drain, though, from Lilligant was a bit worrisome, but we end up surviving on 2 HP on Misty, even while poisoned, and we get the W. And ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much the end of the game. There is some extra story elements you guys can do in the game, where you can go and actually deal with Team Rocket in the Pokemon like Casino and whatnot, if you want to go do that, or the Game Corner as it is called. You can go do that as well if you want to. It is not necessary, however, but I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, ladies and gents, that's pretty much the end of the journey. If you guys did enjoy the video, then drop a like down below. If you want to check out the game, it's Pokemon Anil, just search it up, or you can join our Discord, where we have links to all the games we cover. So if you want to join our Discord, there's links to all these games there as well. So ladies and gents, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, and bye-bye.